Talk about this thing that's in my brain. It keeps me from wanting to go on, but I want some gain. Maybe a little fame.
We are recording.
We're live.
It's been a while.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the We the Patriots Media Podcast. My name is Andrew. I'm co-hosting today with Sal.
What's up, dude?
And we've got some very entertaining stuff for you guys today. We're going to try something a little bit different. We're going to actually look at some clips, just some short, 2 to 5 minute clips. Just take snippets of them and kind of react to them and just entertain you guys as much as possible and entertain ourselves while we're at it. So the first one we have here is, I'm sure everybody has seen this. Our president, geriatric, collapsing yesterday at the Service Academy graduation.
Let's be honest here, it's not the first time.
No, it's not the first time, but it's the first time at a Service Academy graduation that we've seen this. It was the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. And funny enough, I believe at the West Point Military Academy back in 2019 or 2020 or something like that, Trump actually fell down a ramp a little bit too. So we're not just picking on Biden here, but let's be honest, Biden's was way worse than Trump's. Trump just kind of slipped and was holding a railing or something.
Well, I mean, first of all, just play the clip. But second of all,
here we go.
I mean, we could talk about it after.
The clip speaks for itself. Here we go.
The president's fall is reverberating across the nation today.
It literally took minutes for his near faceplant to go viral.
He's getting slammed by conservatives.
Of course.
It's humiliating for him, but it's also humiliating for our country.
Honestly, that was symbolic of the state of our country. Our country continues to trip and fall.
But that was a bad fall. You can't fall. You just can't.
He fell too, though.
Just can't allow it to happen.
Returning to the White House last night, Biden
He's limping like he just got fucked in the ass.
Sandbag!
He got bagged, all right.
I got sandbagged.
There was no need for the doctor to see him as it was related to the fall.
Okay, I've seen enough
And
at
he's
this
doing
point.
fine.
Yeah, I think I've seen enough too. It's
wait, are they showing it again? Hold on.
Has put
There we go.
That was a good, and the Secret Service agent.
It's not the first
Here
time
we go.
he has stumbled.
You're seeing some. All right.
Couldn't anybody have tripped over a
Now you can pause it. So
We've seen enough.
I think the best part that, and you even mentioned it, was that Trump fell too.
He did.
It is symbolic of the nation that we can't stop electing people who are falling over themselves and shitting their pants. And instead of running the country, they're really struggling to run their own lives in general. And these are the people that we're electing to be the face.
To be fair, though, Trump's was nowhere near as bad. He attributed it to a slippery
He's still
ramp.
70-something
years old.
And he's the
he's a big
leading
guy.
candidate.
He's a big guy.
He is the leading candidate for the Republican Party.
That is true.
I think it goes to show that our country as a whole is looking to solutions in the wrong areas of life. I'll put it that way.
I would agree.
I'll put it that way.
I would tend to agree. I mean, still at this point, I think in terms of both physical and mental abilities, I think Trump is still miles ahead of Biden, but there's still issues, obviously, with Trump.
Without a
at this
doubt.
point.
But you could pick issues with every guy. You're going to start to see. So now they're trying to do hit pieces on DeSantis, too. And it is what it is. They're all snakes. They're all in the same pond together, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't have anything else to say on this guy because I think the sad thing with Biden is it's been the same thing since he got elected, and he hasn't changed for better or for worse. He's just stayed the course as an absolute buffoon.
I mean, I think cognitively he's disintegrated significantly.
But his policy
even
decisions
worse.
are just staying the course left.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They're not changing. There's somebody running it behind him. He's not the one actually deciding policy.
Correct.
We all
know he's a puppet. There's no Mr. Unity in Biden.
No.
Like he ran on from his basement or whatever he did. That's not going to change until the president changes.
No.
If it even changes. We'll see how this election cycle works out. But we're actually about ready to start kicking off this election season.
Yes.
It is 2023 now. And usually about the June before the next cycle is when candidates are
all
really
coming out of the
announcing.
woodworks.
They start announcing themselves. Like
DeSantis did what, 2 weeks
DeSantis
ago?
did 2 weeks ago. Pence is supposed to announce his campaign on the 7th, I believe.
Yep.
Which is going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting. I mean, I don't think he's going to. I think
Pence isn't going to go anywhere, but I'm curious.
he's
where
doing it just to spite Trump.
I'm sure.
on a
I'm
debate
really,
stage.
I'm really curious where his head's at
because
and where he comes at.
he was like him and Trump were like that
for a while,
like especially on policy, like they agreed on everything. So
Right
it's going to
up
be
till the
interesting
end.
to see
right up till the end.
right up
when-
until the end. So it's going to be interesting to see those two on a debate stage, and we might want to do like a live show for that or something. That would be really interesting, actually.
Yeah. So hopefully that actually comes to fruition. You think that Biden's going to allow debaters, or what do you think his plan is with that?
I mean, I don't even think they're going to waste. I think he's just gonna run, and I think the Democratic Party is going to end up supporting him pretty much unanimously.
Regardless, nobody's going to primary him, I doubt.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So
I don't think anyone's going to primary him out. They're not
No,
even
they
gonna
need
attempt.
him. They need him to keel.
You
So
might see like a radical, as if he could be any more radical, but you might see someone from the far left who isn't in love with Biden
right.
try to primary him. Someone to the caliber of like AOC or one of those really far
Right.
left ones, but.
I would have said Bernie like 7 years ago, but I
Bernie
think they're
too.
best
Bernie's-
friends now.
Bernie's too old now, and he said straight
Bernie's
up.
essentially running the policy at this point. Everything that he's written down for the past 10 years
what
is his
they're
policy.
doing. Yes, correct. But Bernie himself said he doesn't even want to run again.
Right.
Which,
Right. I don't think he's running again.
and honestly, dude, like the more I like compare him and Biden, I would almost rather have Bernie Sanders be president right now
Right.
than Joe Biden.
Right.
And I never thought I would say that.
But at least you would probably know where his head's at.
You know where his head's at, and that's why I say that. I'm not saying I agree with Bernie Sanders' policy. Even maybe there's
Just
a thing or
cognitively,
two,
he's more
but
put together.
cognitively he's miles ahead of Biden. And I mean, Bernie Sanders, he could shoot threes all day. I saw some footage of him like shooting basketball and stuff. He can still do it, man. It looks awkward as all hell, but he does it.
Oh my God. Go to the next clip, dude. What do we got? What else you got for me?
One thing about this, though, is at the beginning of this clip, I love how Inside Edition just goes right to Fox News bashing him. And of course, Fox News talks about that right away. As if, I feel like Fox News is starting to become like a middle school, drama.
Well, I think
Because of course they're going to mention it, but they just go on and on.
they're still
and on.
cable news.
They are.
So more than likely, they're playing the bully role to purposefully try to prop up the left, which is like
it's
if
not
that's the-
productive.
if that's the power, it is productive for the left side.
Well, yeah.
It's really productive from the left side.
From the left
Because
side.
how are they going to win this next election? They are so weak. They have no good candidates running. Not that the Republicans do either, but when you're the party in power, so much of that comes back on you.
Yep.
And they have not. The economy sucks. Foreign policy sucks. I mean, everything. Day-to-day life sucks. Everything that's getting integrated seems far-fetched and out there. And you're talking about social policy. Nothing seems to be going their way from a normal American's point of view. So they need to distract. They need something.
Correct. That is very correct. But semantics and trivial stuff like this, it might get the attention of, the not very intellectually advanced or curious. But this stuff, after a while, to me, looking at it, when I would have Fox News on in my house and it's just Sean Hannity blaring the same thing over and over again about, how Biden keeps falling. Yes, it's not great, but it really doesn't do much for me. The solution is, yes, vote him out of office, but we should really be hammering on more policy in terms of little stuff like this, because that's how you really change most people's minds, and that's how you really get people to realize our country is physically going in a very bad direction.
Yes.
You don't do that just because the president falls.
You don't make character attacks, yes, because you can always point the finger back the other side.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, just because the president falls himself, that's in the context of him being old and showing he's old.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
If we had a president that had a seizure syndrome who was 40 years old, right? and he fell, people wouldn't be saying the same thing. So, right, just because the president falls doesn't mean, like, it has nothing to do with his policy, which is atrocious, by the way. And I don't agree with very much of it, but...
And is somewhat represented by the clip.
And it is obviously somewhat represented by the clip, because he's old and incapable, but just...
It's a cheap shot.
It's a cheap shot. That's a great way to put it.
Go take a look at some of the comments, though, because they are funny.
It is a cheap shot, and they are
You know
funny.
why it's not a cheap shot, though? I will say this. When you're making a point from a conservative point of view, or anybody's point of view, you don't have to be a conservative to argue that he's unfit for office.
Of
You could
course,
just be a normal human being, which is who I think I am.
And it's obvious to see
That's
that
my
he's-
point. It's happened. How many times has he fallen on camera now?
And that's only on camera.
That's
how many times in the White House?
Right.
you
How
know,
many times is he just
gets up out of
stumbling and
bed?
falling
Oh,
around?
Jill, my
Right.
back, and he's.
But I
fucking
could think
trampled.
of. So I know they showed the clips, but I could think of he did it on Air Force One, I think, or Air Force Two, whatever. What's the helicopter?
Marine One.
Is it one?
Marine One.
Marine One. That's where he tripped and fell up the steps. Marine One, and then it was
The helicopter.
It was the bike,
the bike in Delaware,
and then you had this.
Yeah.
That's 3 documented falls. And then I also think of the time when he went to the summit in, was it Switzerland or Davos
Switzerland,
or
yeah.
wherever the fuck, where he got turned around and he didn't even know where he was. He
and he
walking
was
with
going
a
like
lunch
he's
tray.
gonna, yeah.
Like, so these are examples, like pure solidified fact examples showing that we have
dude's
a
lost.
president who is not there mentally.
Yes.
And one side seems to be unwilling to admit, that's where they do have a point. Now, making it a character attack and saying that it equates to policy, that's where you draw the line and said, no, I disagree with his policy on a whole different level than him being unfit for office.
Well, I think it's totally different than his character, and I don't think it's a character attack. I just think
the way
they make it, yeah, sure.
Look at Fox News right now.
Yeah,
that looks
Biden's
like a character
latest
attack.
fall fans age, fitness concerns, which
That looks like a character attack.
I mean, it doesn't talk about his character though. It talks about his age and fitness concerns, like specifically in that headline.
True in the headline, but what they're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah,
Then
it gets just
when
like
I
chip
talk about
shoddy,
it,
all going against character.
which to me isn't very productive
at all.
because that itself doesn't really have anything to do with running the actual country. Now, it's a side effect of his cognitive and physical ability, which does have something to do with running the country, right?
Correct.
So that's kind of like the issue. How they're just dumbing it down and being kind of disingenuous in a way, and it's like, I don't know. It's not productive. I don't really like it for that fact that it's not productive, and I think that really hammering down on policy and trying to get people to be more aware of the fact that wiping away $10,000 of student loan debt.
Where's it actually coming from? Everybody's paying for it right now when you go to the store.
Yeah, everyone. And if you didn't go to college, you're helping to pay these
Doesn't matter.
loans back.
Does not matter.
Does not matter at all. If you're a trucker, right, who's making good money, mind you, you're paying off the student loans now of, and someone who didn't even go to college.
Yeah.
Kids who aren't even born yet, when they grow up and start paying taxes, they're going to be back paying this. That's $10,000 per college graduate.
The best argument to me, doesn't matter, you could say all of that, but whoever took out a loan and paid it back already isn't getting reimbursed $10,000.
No.
That's the worst part.
That is the worst part.
Because that's just a slap in the face. Because now you're just telling me that this policy was bred and born for all of these people to just stay in their hole and to screw everybody at the same time.
Yep.
Why? We all know. It's fine. So
But that's
anyway,
that's
next
one
clip.
that's one
Next
example
clip. Next
of
clip. We don't have that much time. We don't have that much time to stay on one clip.
That's true.
Go to the next one.
But it is
Or
just one
see comments
example.
first.
It is one example of shitty policy, that we should say. However, some of these comments
Make it worth it. They make it worth it.
are very hilarious, and I can't say I disagree with them. Inside Edition never disappoints. They even have a specialist at falling. The most down-to-earth president we've ever had.
Those were good. I saw
That
those.
one made me laugh.
I saw those on just like anybody posting the video. It was funny.
And the most corrupt. Yeah, he's a very good president. Uwu, whatever the hell that means.
It's a face.
Can you explain how? Oh my God. Can you explain how he's the most? See, that's just being totally clueless too.
Well, some of these people you got to think are like 5 years old from a different country, like stumbling across this video somehow in their feed.
See, this was actually relevant to what we were talking about before. Roosevelt was in a wheelchair during his entire
That's what I was going to
presidency,
mention. Yep.
And he's known for his significant contributions he made to our nation. Now, there's obviously debate on that too, but
Well, there's not really debate. Their lasting effects, are they...
There are lasting effects.
Are they positive
There's
or negative?
debate on whether or not there's positive or
Yes.
negative, but that's what I'm getting at.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah. But that was my point before, is that just because you have a physical disability doesn't necessarily translate to...
Biden falling on camera.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily contribute to policy.
The president has fallen.
The president has fallen.
A fall prevention specialist.
I swear,
Found my new career.
I always love their interviews with the expert, because it's just like, we talked to a stepping in dog poop expert about whether or not you should be worried about ruining your shoes, and this is what they had to say. Maybe. I mean,
that's a very well thought out and well written.
That's an underrated comment right there.
Very simply put point. So what do we got next, dude? We got
a lot to do. So we're gonna.
Looks like we got Jordan Peterson.
We're gonna sidestep to a little Jordan Peterson now and go with some philosophy here. What was this? Was this the 30-second to 60-second one?
No. That's the next one.
Oh. Well, this is the tragic story of the man-child, which I found very interesting. Where do you think the meat and potatoes of this one starts at?
Did you start it at 0 before?
I did.
So probably like a minute 30, maybe 50 seconds, somewhere around there.
All right, let's see.
She's like the fairy of porn.
That's a good place to start.
Exist.
There you
She's
go.
the substitute for the real thing. And so, but the dichotomy that you're talking about is very tricky, because there's a sacrificial element in maturation. Right? You have to sacrifice the pluripotentiality of childhood for the actuality of a frame. And the question is, well, why would you do that? Well, one reason is it happens to you whether you do it or not. You can either choose your damn limitation, or you can let it take you unaware when you're 30, or even worse, when you're 40. And then that is not a happy day. I see people like this, and I think it's more and more common in our culture, because people can put off maturity without suffering an immediate penalty. But all that happens is the penalty accrues, and then when it finally hits, it just wallops you. Because when you're 25, you can be an idiot. It's no problem. Even when you're out in a job search, it's like, well, you don't have any experience and you're kind of clueless.
It's a great point.
You're young, it's no problem. That's what young people are like, but they're full of potential. Okay, well, now you're the same person at 30. It's like people aren't so thrilled about you at that point. It's like, what the hell have you been doing for the last 10 years? Well, I'm just as clueless as I was when I was 22. Yeah, but you're not 22. You're an old infant, right? And that's an ugly thing, an old infant.
I think that's a good place to stop.
It's a really good place to stop it there. That's a great point to hammer down on.
That's a minute 30 of Jordan Peterson. If you've never seen Jordan Peterson, it's one of my favorite people to... He's just a great YouTube account to follow. He posts clips, he posts lectures, he posts podcast episodes, he posts everything that you could possibly want.
Yeah. And whether or not you agree with what he says, it's very thought-provoking. So just that disclaimer.
Yeah, and I hope that like I said, about 90-second clip or so just showcase one form of thought, but it's a good line to follow. And when you don't let yourself mature, you don't put yourself in a place to make mistakes in the real world. When you hide yourself away and maybe you just want to be the, I'll give an example. You want to be the 7-Eleven cashier for the rest of your life because it makes enough to cover your bills right now, rather than taking any step forward. And you're fine with that. You may have done a 1 or 2 job search, like he said, and it worked out or it didn't or whatnot, but you still never stepped forward. You're an unproductive human being. And when you face the actual music and you know what the truth is, you can push that off as long as you want in this society nowadays. Our society will help you if you're lower income to get housing, to get food.
Yep. Cover your basic needs.
To get your basic needs. So it will promote that lackluster type of person. Now, but I think that goes back to a little bit of a point we were making before we even talked today, was the IQ point.
Hold on. We hit the point on this, right, I think?
Well, we hit the point. I kind of hit my point. What I was going to say is it ties into the IQ thing we were talking about earlier.
Yes, that's what we were talking about.
And I did just want to mention that, like, when you need a certain, like, kind of job set for those people, our society did develop enough of those, and that's not bad.
Yeah.
But now we're automating them out of the workforce.
And that is another clip that I saw of his, that where he was talking about like, so over the past 30 years, we've automated so much that we've pretty much wiped out the working class.
Yeah,
Right?
and
And
that's
so
gonna be
he was saying
it's gonna be a problem going into the future.
the lower tier of the white collar class is next. The example he gave was that lawyers are disappearing rather rapidly. Now, he's not saying that all lawyers are in the bottom tier of the white collar class, but lower tier lawyers themselves are in the bottom part of the white
and their
collar
stuff
class.
is easy to have a computer just write up for you.
Yeah. So if you're a very good lawyer and you have like you're in a great niche or something, you know, your job's not going anywhere. I don't foresee a computer even coming close to replacing that.
No, it can't.
anytime
Not
soon.
for a lawyer who can think on his feet.
Correct. And that's what he said too. He said he literally said the only people who are going to have the money are people with a high IQ who could think on their feet and have high aptitude and conscientiousness.
I'm sorry, but
That's
that's
so
what
true.
it's going to come down to.
And it's so true.
And that's going to be one of the big problems going into the future with just everything is so technology heavy and you're relying on it to such a degree. One glitch in that system, one solar flare, our power grid goes out for even a day.
Yeah, oh my God.
I'm sure that the aftershocks would be felt worldwide for months.
Yep.
Economically.
Absolutely.
Imagine if we had something happen that was months, weeks. We're never going to recover. We're starting from ground zero.
Because we're so technology
We're so
dependent.
far removed
Yeah.
from having people do some of the jobs that we haven't done in so long. We're going to struggle.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what I'm afraid of the most.
And it's really bridging the gap and creating it's going to be creating an even larger, quote unquote, lower class. If you're starting to incorporate some of the lower tier white collar class,
You're just
within
making that-
it's just
you're just
making it
making
even
it bigger and bigger, and it's
not to
gonna
say that there was
swallow
anything
everybody.
wrong with being
At some point, it's going to swallow everybody.
a working class,
will.
individual, back then. But over the past 30 years, those jobs mostly have been replaced by automation. But of course, right, you still have labor. You still need laborers.
Well, that's the jobs that are going to be
blue-collar
starting to
workers.
come back. Unfortunately, is the jobs that you just can't get a machine to do.
Correct. Yeah. But
And that's
you know,
it. So yeah, I
a
think
lot
you
of
should,
cashiers and a lot of like that sort of thing.
I think the next clip
Have
shows
been.
you the danger of that society.
Yeah, and I think it
And
does
it's
too.
30 seconds. Just go 30 to 60. You don't
Yeah.
need any more than that.
All right. So here we go.
Another Peterson. It connects well.
Disgust sensitivity is associated with orderliness, and that's associated with conscientiousness. And one of the things about Hitler was that he was very disgust sensitive, and a lot of his hatred for non-Aryans. So imagine inside the Aryan box, it was all uniform. Outside, it was all parasites and predators. And that was a manifestation of disgust, not of fear. It's a whole different thing. And if you read Hitler's Table Talk, which is a collection of his spontaneous dinner speeches from 1939 to 1942, it's a very interesting book. You see that his metaphor for the Aryan race was a body, a pure body, unassaulted by parasites or predators, and that he was trying to erect a border around it to keep all of that away. So it's an immunological disgust-like metaphor. And there's some recent work that was published in PLOS One about 3 years ago showing
So that's good there.
Brilliant.
But what do you take away from that? His view on Hitler's perspective from that point of view.
I'm not really sure what to
So
make of it.
what he goes on to further explain in the clip is that you other people. So that's going to be lovely.
Yeah.
But you turn, just because one set of people either believes something, performs an act, doesn't really matter. You treat them as you would a rodent, as you would something that needs extermination, right? And then you, by way of treating that, you find ways to exterminate them or to rid them of your society, to cleanse yourself of them. And what comes out of that is that you separate by way of ideas, by way of religion, by way of philosophy, and to break people down. And that's why you start having things like anybody not conforming to the Aryan way of life, gypsies, gays, blacks, Jews, Catholics. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. You can
does
break it
not
down
matter.
to any group you want to.
But Hitler threw them all in the garbage.
Yeah.
Because to him, if you were not Aryan conforming, and even if you were Aryan but you didn't agree with his way of life, you fit into this box. And that box eventually swallows itself because
yeah,
you
it
can't
was so
agree you can't agree with Hitler on 100% of things. And if you disagreed with one thing enough, it would get you put into that group.
And killed.
And that's what I mean. At some point, it just swallows itself. And what he goes on to say is if he really had a plan of winning the war, he would not have committed so much effort into killing Jews. His goal was not to win the war.
Yeah.
His goal was to exterminate as many Jewish people, as much of the Jewish race, because he saw them as unclean, as possible. And he did it really well. He did a mechanized way of doing his version of what he thought was going to solve the human problem. Hitler.
Yeah, I mean, it's messed up to say he did something like that so well, but he had it, like you said, mechanized, and right, he invaded these countries.
Killing machine.
Yeah, he invaded these countries with that, like you said, sole purpose.
It's terrible. And he goes on to say the same things, and I implore, we'll leave the links to all of these clips, implore you to go and watch the whole clip, or even watch more of this lecture where he says exactly what I'm trying to say, or paraphrasing, but... Yeah. It's a way of thinking that's very dangerous when you start thinking of people as other. And when this other group grows and grows and grows, it doesn't matter if it's white-collar work, blue-collar work. When it starts to all get encompassed into work that can be done by machinery instead of human beings.
I was going to say, it ties in very nicely to that, too, where it's a group that could eventually be swallowed by itself, right?
It's inevitable.
It is inevitable.
It's inevitable.
It is inevitable.
Especially the way that you treat it philosophically. So. Yeah. I don't know if you had anything else on that, but Jordan Peterson's a great watch for anybody who hasn't seen his lectures. I very much implore you to go watch. His podcasts are good. Interviews are good. I like it. And his books are good as well.
Yes, 12 Rules for Life. You have to be very patient to get through it, but it is a great read, and you need to look at it with a lot of symbolism. But it is highly recommended.
It'll also put, the one thing I did like about it is it'll put a lot of... what do you call that? The primary sources. It's going to give you a whole hell of a lot of primary sources to argue.
A lot of real world examples of what he's talking about.
Which is what I think he's best at.
Yeah.
So we got one more clip.
We got one more clip for you.
You don't even really need to show it necessarily, but show a little bit of it.
Yeah, we will. It's a YouTube short, so here we go.
Special counsel John Durham has now released a 300-page report looking into the origins of Operation Crossfire Hurricane. That is the investigation into Trump-Russia collusion launched in July of 2016. And as it turns out, according to Durham's report, there was nothing there. There was never anything there. Basically, this investigation was launched on the basis of pretty much nothing because there were higher-ups at the FBI who wanted to investigate Donald Trump. And they knew there was nothing, and they kept pursuing it anyway. They even knew that Hillary Clinton was attempting to retail false information about Donald Trump and Trump-Russia collusion, and they proceeded to ignore the so-called Clinton plan. And in fact, the high-ranking members of the Obama administration were informed of this. Barack Obama knew about it. The FBI director knew about it. Everybody knew about it, and they went ahead with the FBI investigation into Trump-Russia anyway. This is worse than Watergate-level stuff because it is far deeper. It goes throughout organization.
Yeah, so you could stop it there because that's his opinion. But I agree.
I
happen to agree with it.
I kind of do happen to agree with that.
But you have to track it all the way down, so I want your opinion. Go for it. What's your take on that one?
So, why have we not really heard so much about this since the report was released?
3 weeks ago?
3 weeks ago, or whatever, yeah.
A month ago now? Yeah.
So, we were talking about this before we started recording. This implicates Barack Obama, Joe Biden times 2 because he was vice president under Obama.
Correct.
And Bill Clinton to an extent. And so, Hillary Clinton, but then Bill Clinton as well, obviously, therefore. So,
Clinton Foundation.
Sure, which is obviously Bill and Hillary are both involved with. But, yeah, we'll see. Look at this comment right here. Obama, Clinton, and their crew need to be held accountable. I would just add Biden in there as well.
Well, that's part of the crew.
The crew. And any of their close associates. I mean, they knew damn well, according to this report,
Peter Strzok,
that there was nothing there, and they were strictly using these pretenses as a strategic campaign move for Hillary Clinton back in 2016.
Do you remember Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, the lovers, the FBI lovers?
No.
The ones that were texting back and forth how much they hated Trump and whatnot?
I do remember that.
Now, that was in the report as well. So, but it's all their buddies. It's people that got their sentences let off. So,
like, this is so blatant.
But this is the rot.
Like, this isn't a conspiracy theory.
This is the rot, and this goes back actually to the first clip, where I think conservatives have a better angle of attack.
I do.
Use this angle. corruption. It's obvious, and let's get it the hell out of the White House. Let's get it out of every office.
Please, there's
Republicans that are just
deeply
as
involved
filthy,
with
if
it.
not filthier. I'm sure filthier because they don't talk about it.
They want to pretend to be on a moral high ground all the time.
I
right?
guarantee you there's Republicans that are worse and nastier and slimier than these motherfuckers, and I don't want any of them in office anymore. I'm tired of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like disingenuous for both sides to do it, if we're being honest, because conservatives, they don't necessarily virtue signal like overtly like Democrats do, which makes this kind of thing very ironic because, like I said, they're virtue signaling and they try to come across as, you know, on a moral high ground all the time and, oh, we got to do what's right, you know. The fuck was that? And then you have Republicans, on the other hand, just not overtly trying to be on a moral high ground, but trying to, you know, claim to be principle-based, right, and all for the Constitution, generally speaking, and everything like that. So this, it's like I said, it's disingenuous from both sides, really.
I agree, man, and this is where we need to come together. This is where we come together as a nation. This is where we come and actually try to put our votes behind somebody and stop electing these elderly, past their prime people who can't actually enact anything with a backbone because they're getting so controlled by people behind them.
Yeah.
You could see it even with Trump. You could see it even with Trump. He came in with a lot of ideas and about 7 of them got executed. And
I don't think that's entirely his fault.
It's not, but my point is...
he underestimated what he called the swamp. Yeah.
He underestimated the swamp.
I think he
did. When it comes down to it, it's an inevitable piece of American politics. And we need to whittle it away from our vantage point. And the more that we vote people in that sucker to the swamp...
Yep. If there's one gripe I have with the structure of our government, and the only thing I can think of that our founding fathers missed, and it's relatively minor, but it's become major over the years, is how our structure allows for the development of bureaucracy, which is the swamp.
It's because there's no laws keeping money out of politics. But that's the point.
With how our structure of government allows for so much appointments.
Yeah.
Like how so many positions are unelected. That's the only real gripe I have, albeit minor. Our founding fathers were absolute geniuses.
Correct, but you couldn't see.
And that's
they don't
How could you
foresee
really
something.
Foresee that?
They don't foresee America becoming the absolute economic powerhouse of the world.
Yeah.
And if you do, then you're like, well, if we are leading forget about the free world. We are the lingua franca. We have the language. We have the money. We have everything that everybody bases off of. If we were going to become that, I'm sure as shit that they would have included some type of law or write-up or provision that if we become massive, money cannot affect politics because of this reason.
Yeah.
We've seen too many instances of corruption come because of this. But it wasn't in their mind because they were like, we need to get the fuck away from these motherfuckers first. Yeah. It took too long. It just took too long. By this time, amendments, imagine by the time the Civil War actually happens and amendments need to happen in order for the country to come together again. There's no thought of let's keep money out of politics. Money needs to be in politics. How do you think that the both sides of the war were funded? It was all money through politics.
Of course. Right?
And that's every war. That's the American Revolution.
The South was actually being funded by a lot of foreign countries that received a lot of their cotton and a lot of their agricultural output.
You want to do some reading? Go look at how much, anybody go do some reading, how much money that Ben Franklin spent on keeping the American war going in the Revolution.
Yeah.
Just go look at it. It's not necessarily disturbing, but it's eye-opening.
It is,
to know that if
it was
we
necessary at the time.
But if we didn't have people like that, we wouldn't be here.
Franklin was one of the...
I tell you, that's why it's not written into law.
Major catalysts of winning the American Revolution. He was a fantastic diplomat.
Diplomatically, and he was giving a lot of money.
Say diplomat, you want to say, some of that implies maybe being a little bit bribe worthy, but the way they did it, it was advantageous for the cause, for the country at the time. I think you're probably right in saying that that's why it wasn't in there, but I don't think they foresaw it being malicious. I think maybe with the structure they set up,
they hoped it would be
with
advantageous.
the structure they set up, it could be like the bureaucracy could be used in a good way, and that
couldn't
like
agree more.
That if, say, you're involved in government, that there's these checks and balances that if you're bad, say,
I think both cameras are out, so we're on this guy at this point. But
great,
finish it.
That say, if you're, we have built-in checks and balances within our federal government, and then I think maybe they foresaw that if someone was malicious in the bureaucracy, they could be impeached. I don't think they foresaw so many people being so comfortable and protected by the bureaucracy.
I think that you couldn't have nailed it anymore.
Yeah,
but that's what they're protecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody, this is going to be our tester to go onto Spotify for video. So be real interesting. I'll go and get with Andrew behind. Look at this one-time zoom here, and I'll come over here with my boy. So go check out your shirts. We got this on the website. We got a lot of stuff coming, and coming from this guy. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Yes, sir.
Realistically, this is going to be a lot of our content when we're together, and when we're not, we're going to be putting together interviews.
Yeah.
We got a good one coming out, and then this one after.
Yeah.
So, hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you.
We'll see you. Thanks for watching.
Say, damn, I wish I were the fucking state. I wanna be something, not nothing. Trapped inside my dream, and I'm running away from these demons. But the feeling's so good, I'ma keep dreaming.